Hello there, my friend. It's good to see you again. I thought that today we'd try something a little different. As you can see on my palette here, I have a different set of colors than what you've seen me use in the past. Today I only have 3 colors, or 4, including white. I've got ultramarine blue up here, I've got cadmium yellow pale right here, and I've got cadmium scarlet right next to that. And over here, of course, I have my trusty titanium white. So, with just these colors today, we are going to paint a lovely picture. And on the canvas, of course, I have my titanium white all thinly applied to the canvas. But I've done something a little different on the canvas too, just to start off. I put a piece of masking tape across the horizon line, or where I think the horizon line is going to be, because I want my line to be very clean. We're going to be painting some water today. Well, like usual, I know. I paint a lot of water, but what can I say? I love the water. And this masking tape will help us keep that line very clean. So why don't we go ahead and paint the sky first? Like we always do, let's go ahead and paint the sky first. Make sure you got yourself a clean brush. I'm using a 2-inch bristle brush, and I want to pull out just a little bit of my ultramarine. Ultramarine is just such a fantastic color for skies. It's fantastic for really everything. If there's one blue that you absolutely have to have, well, I think ultramarine blue is a very good choice. Some of you people out there like to use different blues. That's okay too. Now what I just did there is I pulled out a little bit of the cadmium scarlet and I added that to my ultramarine. Now, obviously, what's going to happen, we're going to start at the top, okay? And we're going to use crisscross strokes to make our sky happen. So we just start at the top like this. And if it's too dark, we can add a little bit more blue. Because sometimes that happens when you add red to blue. Maybe I don't want it to be too violet. Maybe I just want it to be, I don't know, kind of violet. Okay? And this way, things look pretty good. There. Now, I'm not going to waste a whole bunch of time painting lots of clouds today. Ooh, let's get a little bit more blue in there. Yeah. Very nice. Just let your brush be free. Don't worry about it too much. We're going to smooth everything out right after we're done. But we could also add some clouds if we want to, depending how we feel. I don't know, I feel like clouds are always a nice little touch to your painting. Down at the horizon here, it's going to get more and more white, so you want to make sure that as you paint, that your strokes get lighter and lighter and lighter as you reach. Now sometimes when we paint, there would be a hint of yellow at the horizon. Now, are we going to paint that today? I don't think we are, because it's a little too time consuming, but if you want to insert that on your own time, I'm just inserting a little bit more blue here to make the sky a little bit more lively. I want it to be very blue at the top, but I also want it to be very faded at the bottom, just like it should be. Oh boy. A lot of the sky here is going to be covered up. Now what should we do? Okay, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to get a dry brush. First I'm going to clean this one off. When you clean off your brush, it helps to have a 5-gallon bucket. And I fill that 5-gallon bucket with odorless turpentine. It is very important to use odorless turpentine. You do not want to use genuine turpentine. Genuine turpentine gets very sticky. It's very poisonous. It's very volatile. Well, odorless turpentine is still poisonous, but it's nowhere near as volatile as genuine turpentine is. the smell of it is, you can identify genuine turpentine by a strong pine-like smell. It's very strong and it's very hazardous to breathe. I prefer a low odor turpentine. If you can find a very, very light turpentine or a very, very light odorless turpentine, those are ideal to use. My absolute favorites are probably Weber's Turpenoid Light followed by Gamblin's Gamsol. Those two are very good, I think. You don't have to ventilate with Turpenoid Light, but with Gamsol you do. And well, not Gamsol, but Turpenoid Light is what I prefer to use. Okay, let's beat off the brush to make sure it's nice and clean. If you do that, make sure you got a tarp laid out so you don't get paint all over your house. Now, what I'm going to do with my dry brush is I'm just going to run it across the painting. If you get a little piece of something in your painting, just tap it away with the edge. Just come on. Sometimes it takes a few tries. There it goes. Okay. There. Beat it off. And then continue just caressing it. Gently caress it. You want everything to just sort of disappear into this horizon here. Okay. Now we have to make a big decision here. We have to decide if we want to paint some clouds. Do I want to paint some clouds? I don't know. Well, I suppose we could. Let's go ahead and let me get my fan brush, okay? And what I'm gonna do, tell you what, I'm gonna pull out some of this titanium white here, and I'm gonna get it on both sides of the brush, and I'm gonna load that sucker up with paint. And I really want to focus on getting it on the edge there, because look how much paint I got. I got a lot of paint on that brush. That brush is really loaded. Now, one of the things I really like to do is I like to just take the edge here and swirl it around. And you just let it dance any old place, really. If you need more paint, just go back in. Okay, so you got that. And then we can go back in with our dry brush. We'll just swirl out the edge of it and give it a fluff. It takes a little bit of time to build some clouds, so I'm not going to build too many of them today. But building clouds is very, very simple. You simply just load up the brush like I just did, find a spot in the painting where you want to put a cloud, like right here, and make it dance every which way. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. And then you take your brush, one that's a little dry. This one has a little bit of paint on it, but I think it'll work. And then you just, at the edge of that, swirl it out. And then give the top bit of fluff. No big deal. There we go. And if you want to layer a cloud, well, after you've done the fluff, you can go back in with a little bit of your fan brush. Make sure it's loaded up again. And then we're just going to go over, what we did there. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we got a cloud that's just kind of doing its thing over here. And it's, ooh, come on. And it's overlapping that cloud that we just did. Sometimes clouds are just very free like that. They don't care. They don't give a hoot about each other's personal space. So that sort of thing happens a lot. And after you do that, you know, you can just give a little swirl wherever you want. A little swirl, and then a little fluff. Yeah, there we go. And I don't know, those clouds are looking a little, I think we need a couple more clouds in here. I want to put a couple more. I don't want to overdo it though. Oh boy, you know, I like to overdo it. You know what you all say, I just imagine all my friends there at home, I imagine you saying, "So Kiefer, what are you doing? You're gonna ruin your painting. You're gonna make it. You had something good, and now you just gotta go ahead and ruin it." Yeah, I know. Here I am, just an anarchist, painting any which way he pleases. Yep. Well, what can I say? That's how I do. Okay. And then we swirl at the bottom, give it a fluff. No big deal. Those are looking like some very soft clouds, huh? Yeah, I don't want it to be too overbearing this time. Sometimes, if you feel like adding some really stormy clouds to what's going on, you can add in some darks to the bottom, make it look like it's going to rain, and that looks really cool. That looks fantastic. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Now let's say, oh, ooh, look at that one. Getting crazy. Yeah, I know. I like to use the bottom of the brush when it's the bottom of the brush, depending on which side is facing me, to fluff out the clouds for this. It just feels like I have a bit more control over the effect. Okay. There we go. There it is. And, I don't know, let's add one more. Just one more for good measure. Yeah, one more. I'll make this one just a little sneaky guy. Yeah, he's sneaky. Hey, look at him there. Thinks he's got it all figured out, right? Oh boy, I'm gonna tell you, he ain't got nothing figured out. Not with me at the helm. Nope. Yeah. There it goes. Alright, let's blend that out. Yeah. And get it down below. Actually, let's get my fluff. Yep, just like that. Get my fluff here too. And boom. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Now, what I think we should do for that is get the dry brush. Let me put my palette down for a second. I definitely want to clean these off. These are very dirty. So let's really prioritize that. I love the way it feels when I wash these brushes off. It just feels like I'm playing in water or something, even though I'm very obviously not. It's relaxing, isn't it? To listen to the sound of that. The sound of the turpentine. Okay. The big brush takes a lot of scrubbing to get clean. I bang it on the edge of the bucket there to get all the excess turpentine off of it. All that excess odorless turpentine, because, boy, that big brush, it really soaks it up. It really does. He's a big boy, and he knows exactly what he wants, and that's to soak up that odorless turpentine. Sometimes you get it on your hands. If you get it on your hands, be sure you clean your hands off. You don't want to keep that stuff on your hands. It's not good for you to keep it on your hands like that. You really need to be sure to clean your hands very often when you paint. Let me show you something right here. Sometimes you get very oily paint, and when the paint is very oily like this cadmium scarlet here, it likes to slip and slide a lot. And that can create some problems when you're trying to hold your palette like I'm doing. Now, what you need to do is try to mix the oil back in and kind of just smear it all over the palette here, and eventually it'll stop sliding because it'll take hold of the palette. once you start smearing the paint around like this. But in the act of doing so, you lose a lot of the paint, and sometimes you just have to grin and bear it. Now, I really prefer to use a firmer paint when I do something like this. You need a firm paint when you paint like this. It really helps. Even up here, my paint is starting to slide. That means the paint is very oily. It is not very firm, which is not my favorite thing. Here, we'll smear this around up here too. Sometimes it happens. And if it happens to you, don't fret. Just take the paint and smear it. And what's real funny is that I've been doing this with paints for a long time now, and this is probably not going to be the last time either. Okay, now let's take a dry brush and go across the whole thing very softly, barely any pressure, and just smooth it out, blend it out, very gracefully, barely touching it, like you're just blowing on it. There. And now it looks like we have ourselves a very, very respectable sky. Now, be sure you clean off your brush. What I'm going to do is, now that we have our horizon taken care of, I'm going to remove the tape. Now, okay, look at that. That's right. Now what we want to do is we're going to create a little bit of water. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to take that same color that we used for the sky, and because it's in the distance, I'm going to make sure to get a little bit of that cadmium scarlet in there, because I want it to be, somewhere around the same hue as this. And what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and start at the side. Yep. And this is really what we're going to do. We're going to go all the way across. Because there's not really going to be much of a reflection for us to see once we're going to be done with this painting. So feel free to go all the way across. And the easiest way to do it is to start at one side and go to the other. Okay. Very good. Very good. The waters aren't going to be especially ripply today, but we're going to insert just a few things just to keep it interesting. I do believe in keeping paintings interesting, you know. Yeah. Now, see, that is about the same color as the sky up above, give or take a little bit. And that is exactly what I want. Okay? Now remember, on a horizon in a painting that you take very slowly, it's going to be a bit more yellow. It's going to have a little bit more yellow as you go toward the horizon line in real life. But here we're just going to leave that out because it's going to make the painting a little quicker. And I think that'll make things a little bit more fun for right now. If you want to insert that later, by all means, go ahead. Now I want to clean off my brush. It's very important to clean off the brush after you do something like that, because we're going to need clean brushes always. Okay. I only have 2 brushes on me while I do this. In a perfect world, I would have a whole bunch of clean brushes at my disposal all the time, but unfortunately that is not the case. And you want to be sure to dry off your brush with a little bit of paper at some point. paper towel, toilet paper, however you want to do it. And that way you'll have yourself a nice clean brush and you won't have turpenoid getting all over the place. What happens when you leave turpenoid on the brush is when you try to paint, if you haven't dried off the brush with all the turpenoid on it, then the turpenoid will get on the painting and it'll cause everything to bleed. And it'll make the painting into a big mess, and you really don't want that. You really, really do not want that. My goodness. Believe me, that is the last thing you want when you do one of these. I'm going to take a lot of white here, okay? And I'm going to take just a little bit of that color we did. Yeah. And we're going to use the small palette knife, and we're going to just cut across it. There. Get a little roll of paint just like that. You can barely see that roll of paint, but it's there. And now I'm going to go in and we're going to just lightly graze the edges of the water here. Yeah. And you can go back in and get some more. Maybe you want to go in and insert a little bit of yellow, or maybe you just want to make pure white on some of these highlights. Well, however you want to do it. We're just going to make like the light is creating a little bit of reflectance on the water. There. Go over here, do the same thing. Keep that knife about level. Keep that knife about level. The water isn't moving around a whole lot. There's not a ton of waves or anything. If you want, you can go and get some just pure white here. Here, pull it out a little bit more. There. And you can put in some really white highlights if that's what you want to do. Sometimes that's what you want in a painting. Sometimes you want something a little whiter just to make things look really bright. And if you do, that's cool too. And go over here, add a little bit. Yeah. There. It looks like the water's just going around, doing its own thing, moving a little bit. If you want, you can just take a little bit, a very small amount of that cadmium yellow, and take a little bit of yellow with a lot of white, and create a very, very light highlight. Pull that out. There. And you can insert that wherever you want. Make it look like things are really bright. Yeah. Cadmium yellow pale is a great color to use if you want to really brighten things up. You want to make things much more lively? Ooh, this is a good way to do it. An excellent way to do it. Now look at that. That is beautiful. There we go. Okay. I think that's enough for right now. I think we've done enough ripples on the water. Now let's go ahead and clean off this old palette knife. Well, tell you what I want to do with this palette knife first, because I really don't want to get rid of all the color that I just did. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the color that I mixed right here, because I don't know if I'm going to really use it again, but I don't want to get rid of it. Now, since I'm using so few colors here, what I really want to do is place it over to the side. I place it over to the side, and that way I've got just a ready-made color available for me if I ever need it. I like to take all that, create a neutral, and that way if I ever need it, it's there. I don't have to mess around with a whole bunch of mixing all over again. It makes things a lot faster. And now comes the point where you want to decide if you want to start painting the foreground stuff or not. We still have this yellowish color that we could insert here, and if you want to do that, you can just do it very casually, like no big deal. Just take that yellow, put it at the bottom of the painting, and let it blend into whatever you've done up above. It's no big deal, really. See how naturally it fits in? You could leave it white, or you could paint in that yellow. I'm telling you, whatever you want. If you feel very confident and you want to do this, you can paint this in just like I'm doing. If you don't feel confident doing it, and you've got a white canvas and you just want to roll with what you got because you feel good about it, you know, that's fine. Go with that too. Whatever it takes for you to feel successful. If you feel like you're more successful just leaving it white for now, go ahead and leave it white. Now, what's very important about this is you do not want to pull the blue back down into the horizon. If you do this, just blend it into the sky and leave it be. Now I want to clean this off, of course. Okay, let's beat it off. And make sure it's dry. You see, it's that easy to put in a little bit of sky color if you want to do so after the fact. It really is no big deal. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to put in something of a floor here. And to do that, we're going to need kind of a yellowish color like we've been using for the sky there, except it's going to be more like an ochre. So let me get the big palette knife. I need the big palette knife for this job. Let's take the big palette knife. And we're going to take that color that we used. We're going to bring it over here. We're going to add a little bit more yellow. A little bit more yellow. Okay. And I want it to have a little bit more of an ochre flavor. So I'm going to mix in a little bit of cadmium star. Not much, not much. Not much at all. Okay. And let's see, what's just a smidge of blue, just a smidge. There, there. And I don't want to overmix it. I really don't want to overmix it. Now we gotta decide where it's gonna begin and where it's gonna end. I think we're gonna begin right here, and we're gonna end right here, right about here. Okay. Okay. There. Yeah, that's about the right color, I think. That is about the right color. Very good. So what we can do, we can take some of this paint off that knife, and then we can now one way you could do it, is to scrape off the paint where you want to paint this floor first. And you can totally do that. Like, say, just paint it like that. That's cool too. Like maybe you want to... There we go. You can do it that way. It might be easier just to scratch it that way. And now what we got to do, we got to cover all this with that ochre color, which is fine. We got plenty of it. But here, right about here is where I think, getting a little too much color on the side there. Okay. Okay, that's about where we want that little platform to be. Let's clean these bad boys off now. There. And we've got plenty of that color left over if we need it. Now let's rinse off the old brush and our oldest turpentine, as always. I go up to Charlevoix a lot to see this lighthouse. I don't know why I'm always so drawn to it. A lot of people are out at the pier just looking off in the distance, watching all the boats sail by. I don't know, I don't pay much attention to the boats. I've done a painting or two featuring the boats near that pier, because I saw one time that the boat was sailing up against the sunset, and it looked particularly nice, and I thought, whew, that is oddly beautiful, because there was a very orangish yellow cast to the sunset, as well, I guess most sunsets tend to have. And against that, this red boat that was sailing, oh, the contrast was irresistible. But usually when I go to that pier, I'm always drawn to this lighthouse that we're about to paint. I want to start with a really dark color. And what I think I'm going to do, we're going to need the palette knife for this. We're going to need a very nice edge. And I'm going to paint some railing that we see near that pier. Okay, I'm going to paint some railing. And all I'm going to need for that is ultramarine with a little bit of the cadmium scarlet or the cadmium red light. Okay. Now, what I want, I think first, I'm going to take the shorter palette knife, cut across that, get a nice roll of paint, and we're going to go to the edge here. And the post for this is only going to go up to about yay high. It really goes right up to the edge. And then for the next post, we're going to go over this way. It's going to be about right there. So we're only going to have about 2 posts, really. Okay. There. That looks pretty good. Now, for the rest of them, we're going to have, I think, we're going to have 3 railings, because people need something to keep them held back from the water, you know? I headed out on a pier once that didn't have any railing, and boy, I did that in the course of filming one of my travelogue videos. A travelogue video is where I go someplace and I do 4 different paintings of the place I'm at. And in the course of doing that, well, I almost hurt myself. I almost fell into the water this one time in St. Joseph because they didn't really have any railings there. And that was something of a nightmare, I'll tell you. I thought I lost my camera. Maybe not so much my camera as the God, I don't remember what I lost. It might have been a water container. Yeah, it might have been a water container. I think in the interest of saving some time, I might just paint a couple of railings instead of 3 of them, maybe. Let's see what it looks like. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah. Okay. Looks pretty good. Getting the darks in. We gotta paint the dark before we paint the light, because if we paint the dark first and then we paint the highlights, then those highlights will happen pretty much automatically, and there'll be an automatic gradation from light to dark. We're all about finding the easiest way to paint things here. And this is one of the easiest ways I know to paint a quick gradation and make it look 3-dimensional. Obviously, painting alla prima like this, as the old masters would call it, is very difficult. But if it was easy, I think everyone will be doing it, right? Well, you're not everyone, are you? Oh, no. You're good. You are. You want this. I want this. Now, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we should paint a 3rd railing in there? I think I want to go for it. I feel like I want to go for it. I want to paint that 3rd railing in there. And if it doesn't look quite the way I imagine, then we can just take a little bit. We can take a little bit of something and cover it up later. More than likely, it'll probably just be a little bit of that ochre color. You notice that what I'm doing with the color palette just isn't that complicated. It's not. It's not that complicated. Okay. Here we are. this other side here. Yep, that's the way we do it. Now the way I'm painting this very quickly like this, it looks a little bit more like a fence than it does railing. But, well, you know how it is. You paint things quickly, you get messy results. We'll just pretend they put a fence out on the pier. Wouldn't that be funny if they did put a fence out on the pier? I guess this is kind of a fence, isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of a metal fence, but it's a fence, all right. Okay, there we go. Now let's go ahead and clean off the old palette knife. Now we can take that blue, and I think I'm just going to take pure blue on this one. Yeah, I think I'm just going to take some pure blue, add a little bit of white, and we're going to get ourselves a deep blue color. And I think that's going to be just perfect. Ooh, look at that. Got a little bit of green in there even. I like that color. I like that color a lot. It's not too green, so it still looks pretty blue. And I feel like that's the perfect color to do with this. Now don't overmix. Don't overmix. It's one of the things I do a lot is I overmix. It's probably my biggest flaw, if I'm being honest with myself. Let's go over here and just pull it down on top of that dark. Yeah. Pull it down on top of that dark. And don't worry about it if it disappears in the background a little bit. You can go and paint in some darks in later if it looks like it's disappearing. If it feels like it's disappearing a little bit, you can go in and paint in a little something just to make it pop a bit more. That's fine. Okay. You have total artistic license. It's the first thing they give you when you go to the paint store and you buy your supplies. They hand you that little ticket that says you can do whatever you want. No, what they really do is they judge you silently, but they judge you. They think, oh, who's this joker coming in thinking they know art? Because you know how it is at art stores. It's usually the art students running things, and well, they're very knowledgeable. But sometimes they're also very elitist. That's okay. If you meet somebody who's really elitist, you just ignore them. You do your own thing because it feels good to you. People in college didn't like me that much either, so don't worry about it. Happens to the best of us. Okay. I went to art school and, well, nobody liked what I did. I was just sitting there painting trees all day and people are asking me what it means, all that stuff. I'm just like, no, I don't know. It just makes me happy. I'm just painting trees because it feels good. One of the things about art school is they read a little too much into everything. It's one of the things I noticed personally. They read a little too much into everything and they think that everything has some sort of subtext. But not everything does. Not everything is an intellectual exercise. I remember one fellow painted he did a print of, I think it was The Walking Dead or something related to Dawn of the Dead. Something was about zombies. And it was a pretty cool piece, but the professor was reading into it a lot and asking, what did we see in it? And usually I can see right through these things because a lot of art tends to be BS. I just said it's an homage to the Dawn of the Dead. It's not really a big thing, and that's the thing about pop art. I don't really like co-opting images so much because it just feels cheap. And when people co-opt images, a lot of times I just have a hard time seeing anything except the original intention. And maybe that's just a flaw on my part, but that's the way I've always thought of it. Tell you what I can do. I can go up here and just there. Okay. Clean that knife off. That's better. That's better. Now, on the lighthouse, there's going to be this block that the lighthouse is standing on, the foundation. And what we've got to do is create that foundation. And the foundation is going to go right about, I want to say, here? Right about there. And we're just going to cut it out with the old knife. I want to follow what I've done here. Okay. And it's going to go, it's going to go all the way out here. And it's going to come back to about, well, why don't we just go ahead and create a little bit of a dark color to go along with this. So we're going to create something a little bit more ochreish again, except we're going to add a lot more blue to it this time. Okay. That looks pretty good. Something really ochreish. There we go. Okay. Now we got that ochreish color. We can pop in that color. Okay. There we go. Let's take the whole thing here. Okay. got some dark slate in there. Now, what I'd like to do is take the color I was using and let's get a smaller palette knife for this. I think we need a more delicate blade for this kind of work. Okay, let's get that. There. And what we can do is pull this down at intermittent lengths, just like this. And it creates sort of a marbled effect that has a shadow near the bottom. It looks like there's lots of interesting stuff going on, like maybe there's a little bit of shadow there too, maybe there's maybe there's some separation near the edges. You can make the color more intense as you get near the edges up here, and that way it'll look like there's more of a block happening. There. It's okay if you don't get the perspective completely perfect. Remember, we're just practicing here. And practice does make perfect. Oh, yes it does. And if you run out of color, don't worry. You can always mix more. There's always more where that came from, remember that. Even if you run out of paint, you can just go to the store and get some more. It's alright, don't worry. You're gonna be okay. There. There. What you could do is go up to the edge and really obscure the dark there. So so it's a little less harsh. And then you can go on with some clean color near the edges on the other side. Let's go ahead and brighten it up a little bit. Maybe add a little bit of yellow to that. Add a little bit of white. Sometimes it takes a lot of white to make this happen. White is your most important color, and it helps to have a really strong white. If you don't have a really strong white, it can make things a little bit more challenging. Make sure you got a little bit of red in there, so it creates kind of an ochreish color. Okay, and then you can go in with your bright color. Just barely graze it. Okay. Maybe you just want to go near the edges over here too. Maybe you want to create more of an edge over here. I don't know. Go ahead. Go for it. in the interest of making this a little less textured, what we could do is go in with this and give it a pull. There. There. Look at that. Go in and delicately give it a pull. There. And this side. Actually, let's just add a little bit of, what we can do is just add a little bit of color in here. Like, we don't want to add a lot of color, but what we can do is add a little bit of something. There. There. Just to make it look a little bit more unified on that front. Okay. Let's go ahead and clean both these off. The palette knife, we want to be sure to wipe off with our towel, tissue paper, whatever you got, whatever you want to use. If you have a towel that you like to recycle, or some sort of rag someplace, by all means, go ahead. With the brush, we're going to dip in the odorless turpentine. And it's going to be super clean. Now I want definitely to get a lot of red here. And I want to take a lot of the red with some of the blue and create sort of a reddish violet color. Of course, when you mix ultramarine with the cadmium scarlet, it's gonna neutralize it a lot more than it would make a violet color. And maybe you've noticed that by now, because cadmium colors don't reflect a lot of violet. So when you take a very orange-leaning red like this, this is a red with a lot of orange to it, unlike alizarin crimson, which has a lot of violet to it. When you take a red with a lot, and I do mean a lot of orange to it, like this one, then it's a little bit more difficult to get a violet color out of it. But sometimes you don't want a real violet color. Sometimes you want a more neutral color like this one. Okay? So what I want to do here is we're really gonna carve out some colors. Just hold on a minute. I'm making a few corrections here. I didn't make this base long enough, and it really needs to be a little longer than the way I made it. It's okay. If you make a mistake, you can just cover it up a little bit with the colors that you already made. If you need to mix up some new ones just to make it happen, that's fine too. Now look at that. We're already well on our way. It's no big deal. There. how easily we can fix that. Just like that. Drop it in, and it's done. All that worrying was for nothing. I bet that feels good, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it does. Painting is about little victories. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but those big victories, not even the big ones, just the little ones, that's what it's really all about. You get those little victories and it just feels so good. Like you just solved a problem that you never thought you'd solve. Okay. Now that we've got that, let's go ahead with the brush again. And let's go ahead and soften this area. Because maybe, well, I don't know. Maybe there's going to be a little bit of a curve there. Just like that. There. Perfect. Make sure your knives are clean. Make sure your brushes are clean. We're about to get started on the lighthouse. There we are. Now let's beat that off. There it is. Okay. Now this next part's not going to be... This next part's going to be challenging, I think. This is probably the best way to put it. I'm going to go up here, and I want to carve out the shape of the lighthouse, okay? And to do that, I want to start right about, why don't we start with the legs, I think. Like, let's go to about there, and then we can go to about right here. And the lighthouse is going to have something of a base, so let's put that in right there. And we'll say that the lighthouse goes right about there. Okay. I think we've got the legs there about right. Now let's make some more big decisions. There. Right about here is where I think the base of this is going to be. Yeah, that's looking pretty. Okay, there. Moment of truth. Be sure you carve it in with the palette knife before you actually go in and paint anything. In fact, if you need to, if your arm is getting especially tired, like, say mine is, you can just put the palette down for right now. Because we're strictly drawing with the knife at this point. We're not making too many big decisions with the brush yet. And maybe that's a little frustrating, but it's really important to make all of these big decisions before we start really laying in the paint. Okay. That's good. Alright, so what we could do is bring this line right up here. There. Now we're not using a ruler or anything, so a lot of this is just really eyeballing, which can be good or bad depending on your point of view. I don't mind eyeballing. In fact, go ahead and scrape out where you think that this lighthouse is going to be. And we want to get rid of some excess paint here so it's easier for us to paint on. There. There, that's better. I know I'm probably making a big deal out of this lighthouse here, but man, we gotta get it right. Really important to get things right. Look at that. Practically got ourselves a lighthouse already. Here. Once you have the framework, the actual supports that go inside the lighthouse are really easy to do because you just got to make an X from point A to point B. So you look how I'm doing there, it's already looking pretty decent. And you do the same thing on all the other sides, really. It's no big deal at all. Okay. And don't even worry about drawing right through something at this point. If you do that, that's okay. Because we are just going to paint right over all of that. Oh boy. Getting all kinds of paint on my hands. Yeah, sometimes that happens when you paint. If you get paint on your hands, don't worry about it. Just wipe it off the best you can, and you can rinse. If you have some lava soap or something that's equally abrasive like that, you can really clean off your hands very easily that way. Lava soap is one of my favorite things to use when I'm doing that. Okay, so we can go ahead from point A to point B there. Point A to point B there. And then you can go to point A to point B over here. Cool. Remember that all the sides are going to have this. So right here, you're going to have a support going that way. Now you've got the framework right there. That's looking pretty good. What we want to do at this point, I think, well, I don't want to put the railing on the lighthouse in until the very last. And I also want to put I kind of want to put the top of the lighthouse in first, I think, because these walls up here are going to be covering that up. So let's go ahead and shape that out. Okay. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of a dark mixture up in there with some cadmium scarlet, a little bit of ultramarine, and a little bit of yellow. Just a little bit of yellow. But you want a lot of ultramarine up in this because you want it to be very dark. Very dark. It's easy to overpower your ultramarine because the cadmiums are so much stronger than they are. But it's important that you get it very dark, almost to a bluish kind of violet color. If you need to add a little bit more blue to your palette, when you do this, go right ahead. Okay. Our dark is looking especially thick. Okay. Very thick. And we're going to cut off that edge. Actually, let's use the short edge of this. Let's use the short edge. And we're just going to pull that right across. You can make a surprisingly good dark from these three colors. You wouldn't think that with cadmium you could get such a dark color, but you would be very surprised. The dark that I'm getting from these colors is possibly darker than what I get with cadmium scarlet, or not cadmium scarlet, but cadmium yellow pale combined with ultramarine and alizarin crimson. I know I seem like I'm a little distracted, and I guess I am right now. I'm trying to get this just right. Trying to get it just right. The top of this. This is not what I would call the easiest thing to sculpt, or scratch in, rather. There. There. And there. Okay. I need a little bit of leverage on this. Ugh. This is a lot thicker than I thought it'd be. Whew. That is some thick paint right there. Now, we want to add a little bit of white to that. And that'll get us the color I believe we need for the highlight on this section. And we want it to be a sort of reddish, sort of a reddish purple, not too reddish, kind of on the verge, just on the verge. I think I've got it right here. Yeah, that looks good. Obviously, since this is on camera and all, it's going to be a little lighter than I probably would paint it if I didn't have a huge spotlight on me. But considering the circumstances, considering those circumstances, we make the best of what we got. Okay. Actually, let me use the let's use the smaller edge of this to get those highlights. There. Very good, very good. Okay. The window is just going to be up there, and it's going to be a very light green right above this highlight I just made. Okay. But since I already shaped the lighthouse, we should go ahead and do that because I want to use my small palette knife for that delicate window work. What I want to do with this is I want to lay in that color, and I don't think I have enough. I don't think there's enough blue in there yet. If you believe it or not, I don't think there's enough blue. It's almost there. It almost is, but not quite. Just add a little bit. Just a little bit. We'll see what it looks like now. It's a little bit more like it. Be sure not to overmix. I know I tend to overmix things, but you really don't want to overmix stuff. Okay. There. There it is. That's much better. So much better. This is going to make for a pretty good shadow color, I think. Now we want to bring it all the way down here. Make sure you get up to the edge. The smaller palette knife is really good for navigating these tricky crevices. There. It's nice. The paint there is going to be rather thick, honestly. It's going to be thicker than you probably think it is. Oh. I was thinking of ditching the smaller palette knife, but I'm having some second thoughts now because that worked pretty well. Let's go ahead and get it on the other side here. Cover up those edges. There we go. Don't be afraid to smear it around. You want to cover up all that stuff that you carved out so it doesn't show up after you've painted the highlights. Or at least do the best you can. Just follow the guidelines that you made. That's the great thing about painting guidelines like this, is that after you've drawn them in, it's a little bit like painting by numbers. You don't have to try all that hard to get everything the way you want it, because you already got it the way you want it. You already carved it in. You see how easy it is? It starts to feel a little bit like a coloring book sometimes when you do it that way. But it works. Now, something that might help you is to leave a little bit of a line here so that you can see the outlines of everything. Like maybe you don't want to cover absolutely everything. Maybe you want to leave something showing so that you know where you've been and you know where you need to go. Like, maybe I want to create a bit more of an edge out here. Okay? So that things stick out a little bit more in the face of this lighthouse. I know the perspective isn't absolutely perfect, but I want to try to get it in the ballpark, you know? You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to just drop it in and forget about it. You want to put some effort into it. Okay? Now here's the point where I want to be very careful what I do. And for these long stretches here, where I'm trying to scratch in these dark shadows, I want to be very careful. The light will be hitting from this side, from the left side of the painting. I want to be sure that I don't cover too much, or that I at least leave some space Now, we're going to do the same thing over all these sides here. Go on in and cover up. Cover up those areas. There you go. If you make a mistake, keep going. Sometimes we make mistakes, and part of the learning experience of art is learning how to deal with them. There you go. Check that out. That's how we do it. Okay, now we want to go ahead and the outside edge of that. Then we're going to go along over here and follow the bottom of this. Good. And we're going to go over here. Perfect. All these little things we're doing are going to make life so much easier for us. It seems very tedious when you do it. After you do it, the painting is so much better for it once you've put the work in. Well, it seems like nothing at all then, doesn't it? No, not so much. Again, we're just carving in these darks. And then later, the highlights will come so much easier. Now, for the highlights, all we're really going to do is we're going to take what I believe we're just going to take pure cadmium scarlet and a little bit of white, and we're going to go over these areas. And we're going to use this big palette knife, and it's going to make all the magic happen. This is where the magic happens. So take a lot of white, and if you get a little bit of some other colors in there, it's no big deal. But get a lot of red in there. This is one area where we want a lot of red. Okay? Don't be afraid to get red in there. I'm probably making up more red than I need, honestly, at this point. There it is. Yeah, what the hey, let's get a little bit of yellow in there. Why not? Make it a little bit more orange. That'll make things a little bit more unified later. So the thing about using a palette like this with just a few colors is that once you've created everything, it looks a lot more unified if you only use 3 colors, because you only have so many choices to work with. You know what I mean? Like, say you want to darken a color. Well, you've got one of 3 places to go. So what are you going to do? If you want to darken your green, what color are you going to choose? Well, I guess I'm going to choose that red. If you want to darken a purple, what are you going to use? Well, I guess I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. Don't have anything else to use. So all in all, a little easier to work with than some of the other choices that people out there are listing. Okay, here's the moment of truth. There. That's the way we do it. Now, this is a kind of a steel lighthouse, so don't worry about covering things up. There it is. Don't worry about things getting very smooth, because it's going to be a relatively smooth place. I mean, it's made of steel, right? Right. Okay. We can use a little bit of that color for a middle tone. Don't be afraid to just really get it on there. What we're going to do, after we put all these bright reds on here, is we're going to smooth this out with the brush. And that'll make things a bit more metallic like the lighthouse actually is. Because the lighthouse isn't a wooden one, at least from what I could tell when I saw this place. It was very much like a box. And I have to imagine that it was probably terribly hot inside that thing for whoever had to operate it whenever. Okay. Oh, God. Isn't that a gorgeous red? Yeah. Yeah, that's the good stuff right there, my friends. That is how we do things around here. Okay. Now let's go ahead and just... Oh, that red. That red really gets me. That is so beautiful. Color never ceases to amaze me. I think I've seen everything, and then, I don't know, just a color comes along and surprises me like it does just now. I guess that's what I love so much about art, is that I never stop being surprised. If I ever stopped being surprised, I probably wouldn't paint so much. But as it is, I am endlessly fascinated by color. It isn't until very recently that I decided on a whole bunch of colors that I actually really like. Like, I asked myself pretty recently, what colors do you like the most? Because I remember painting with all the colors I was painting with during these past ASMR painting episodes, and thinking to myself, do I really like painting with these colors? And the question was, well, the answer was I did. It's just they're not the colors I like the most. So I had to go back to the drawing board. And I had to think to myself, well, what colors do I like the most? And then I came up with a very simple answer. I decided, well, I like ultramarine very much, and I like cadmium yellow. I've always liked that color. I love alizarin crimson. I love cadmium scarlet. And phthalo green. Phthalo green is one that really surprised me because I didn't think that I liked it. But I've learned a lot from that color very recently. It's kind of a humble color. Well, it's not really, I don't know if humble is the right way to put it. Phthalo green, I know it's not a color that we're seeing right here, but phthalo green is a color that is bombastic. Like, it really throws its weight around. It's so strong, it doesn't know its own strength. You have to be extremely, and I mean extremely careful with it. Or else, it's like Superman. It touches a human and it just breaks. Or it touches a painting and it can break the entire painting. It's a bit much, really. But using it over the past few episodes of ASMR painting has really made me think about what I like. And despite it being so strong, my God, I love the color. Oh, I love it so much. Okay. There. Okay. All right. I think. just going to scratch a few things in here. Yeah. Make sure I get it in there. What do I want to do here? Okay, let's make sure we get... And let's see. Well, top of these beams might not necessarily have... They might not necessarily all have this red highlight on them, but I really want to put it there. Just because I feel like it'll make it more interesting. Okay. I want to be careful. Actually, I want to get some of that color down there in here. There. This middle tone color. Just throw it in there. Okay. I want to be careful with that. I really want to be careful. This is going a lot better than I really anticipated. I wasn't sure how this is going to look, but I am turning out to be very pleased with it. Oh, am I ever. It's such a good feeling when these paintings go so much better than you hoped they would. I wasn't sure if this would be good, because I had an idea in my head, and obviously you have an idea in your head. Sometimes it doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes things get screwed up in translation, and you just have to pack it in and try again. But I really like this. This is cool. We need to add a ladder that goes from here to the ground. Okay? I know what you're saying. Whew. All that, we still got to add a ladder. Well, yep, we sure do. So let's get a little bit of that cadmium scarlet, a little bit of that ultramarine. We'll mix them together, get ourselves a nice little neutral kind of color. Let's check it against this, see if it looks about right. I think it does. Okay. We want to be careful on this one. We want to get it as right as we can. It pays, remember that it pays to do things right the first time. Don't go in all willy-nilly and just try to paint without giving yourself a guideline, because it's a good way to set yourself up for failure. Okay, let's go in here, and I want my ladder to go from here to about here. Okay. Okay. Now let's go in with this dark color. Lay that in bit by bit. Don't be afraid to cover up what you scratched out. Okay. Alright. This is a pretty steep ladder, you know? This ladder doesn't play around. I think I want to make it a little bigger. Maybe just a little bigger. There it goes. Okay. I don't think that we're really going to see the rungs in the ladder because they're mostly going to be hidden. It's kind of a weird ladder. It's a little bit encased. Just take some of that color that we used for the highlights. There it is. And then we'll go out this way. There it is. Look at that. Okay. Okay. Now, let's not overthink the rails on this ladder. Let's just go ahead and put them in at about there. And there's a little doohickey down here, just supporting the ladder. We'll just put that right in there. No worries about anything. I guess if we want, we could insert a little bit of shadow right there. There. There, looks pretty good. What we might want to do down here is just, oh, I don't know, insert maybe a little bit more. Then we can go in with the brush, pull that out a little bit, maybe throw a little bit of that down here, make it a little bit more interesting. There. Let's go ahead and insert the rest of that railing. There is a door right here that I want to outline a little bit. I'm not going to do too much to it other than add a couple of little dark things there. Some little dark shadows just to outline it. Okay. And you can't see too much of it, so that's fine. See a little bit right there. Come on. There. Really darken up some of that areas, some of these areas right here. Okay. There. Let's go in there. Maybe blend a little bit of that. Okay. Okay. That's good enough. Now that we've got most of the lighthouse done, let's go in with some yellow, and using a little bit of blue here. Ooh, I might have gotten too much yellow there. Let's just put a little bit of that away. Sometimes that happens. You gotta be ready for that. It'll really trip you up if you use too much yellow. That's still too much yellow. This yellow is really strong. This yellow that I'm using, this cadmium yellow pale, is insanely strong. It's unbelievable how strong it is. I need to tame it with a little bit of violet. Okay. Let's get a little bit more white in there. There. Well, you certainly do get a lot of bang for the money when you buy this particular yellow. Can't complain about that. It's just, holy moly. Didn't expect that to be so strong right then and there. I know you're saying, well, you bought the color, didn't you? You bought it because you like it. Well, yeah, that's true. But sometimes these things hit you in the face even when you have experience. Okay. Let's go ahead and now I'm gonna very delicately put that in. Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good. I gotta be careful. Gotta whisper. Don't want it to get scared. Okay, look. We got part of it in right there. That's good. That's good. Now let's get something a little darker here. Ooh, I want a bit more blue. A little bit more yellow. Ooh, let's get some of that. This is where only using a few colors really comes in handy. What do I want? I don't want quite so much violet. It's too much violet. Let's get some yellow. Okay. And we want to get the blue. Okay. Things are looking a little muddier right there. That's better. We want kind of a darkish green color to contrast with what we just did. But we still want it to be very light. Okay. Ooh, look at that. Yeah, that's just right. Okay. Let's go in. We're kind of just caking it on at this point. We're really laying this in thick. Oh yeah. This is going in big. We're not going to worry too much about any gradation past here because most of it's going to be covered by the railing we're going to put on in a second. Okay. Oh, look at that. Before we really go in there, before we clean this off, I want to... Ooh, I feel like a little bit of blue is in order here. Along with a little bit of white. Because guess what? We have to put some windows on this lighthouse. I know. What do you think? Is that going to be a good contrast? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be a good contrast, but let's... I don't want to get rid of too many of these colors right now because I've made up a lot of the principal colors of this painting. But right here, tell you what, let's insert that right there. There. And then we'll insert another one down right here. Make it a little bigger. Yeah, that looks good. Now, what do you say we just go ahead? We already got the dark. Let's just go ahead and throw that in there. Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. Oh boy. Oh boy. I feel like some big moments are about to are coming up real soon here. So let's go ahead. Oh, and we're gonna need a big palette knife for this. Let's not kid ourselves. We're gonna need a big palette knife. Ooh, and this is just the one. Okay, we need to go ahead over here. Ooh, ooh. What we're trying to do is create something of a ledge right here. Yeah. Ooh, ooh, yeah. Yeah, that is just giving that a nice little crown, isn't it? Oh, that is perfect. I love that. I absolutely love that. That is, okay. You know, let's go ahead and, well, let's clean off the knife. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's clean off the knife. I throw down my palette a lot because sometimes I need both my hands to do what I'm doing, and sometimes if my arm needs a little bit of relief from holding the palette for so long. If you've ever painted for a long time, sometimes you'll know that sometimes it gets a little exhausting holding a palette all the time. Okay? So, now we got that. Let's go ahead and give it a little bit of something right there. Yeah. Yeah, that's the stuff. Oof. Oof. Okay, let's go ahead and, well, we're just going to carve in a few things at this point. Let's go ahead and carve in some railing over here. The railing over here is going to have a few more highlights. So let's go ahead and carve. There it is. Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Now let's go over here too. We need to get all of the railing. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Oh, there it is, yes. Perfect. Whew. Okay, let's get this, let's get this, let's get this, let's get this. Yeah, there it is. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that was a little nerve-wracking, wasn't it? Oh, I bet it was. But now, can't let the nerves get the best of us right now. We gotta still get a little bit of the other side. Okay, let's get the short side first. Let's get this. Ooh, there it is. Come on. There. Ooh, look at that. There. Oh, look at that. That is beautiful. And let's go ahead and get something in between the two for back here. Okay. There it is. For this part, down here, we need to paint the bottom, or the side rather, of, well, I'm getting paint on my finger. We need to paint the side of this pier. So to do that, we need, well, we need a little bit of the trusty yellow, along with some ochre-like tone. And I think, well, let's go with something a little bit more reddish. There we go. See, it really pays to have all the same colors on your palette at the same time. Well, all the colors, as long as there's only 3 of them. Okay, this looks pretty good. Now let's see if we can find something even. Well, I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to just lay that down. Okay? And let's just take a little bit of this. And tell you what, let's just take the dark color here. Get that off. Okay. Let's just take this dark color and we're going to go over just this whole thing. Just like that. Yep. That's how we're going to do it. I believe this is going to be the easiest way that I can think of to do this. Because what we're going to do is lay in the dark. First you lay in the dark, and then you go back in with the highlight, or I guess you could call it the middle tone, however you want to do it. You see, we correct that because the perspective is a little jacked up. There it is. Now, what do we got to do? What do we got to do, I wonder? Well, it shouldn't be too hard because we already have our ochre color mixed up, and we're going to need that ochre color in order to make that highlight happen. Okay. It is really incredible just how much of this is based around you know, highlights on top of darks. It's cool like that. Now, here's what we can do. We just go in like that. Now right here, we might want to reinsert one of the highlights from earlier. But we're going to put another round of this ochre color right here. Okay. Okay. Now we do the same thing over here, bring that back in. Go back in with that color again because it's going to curve again. There. give it a wipe on your paper towel. Here's the challenging part right here, these little, I'm not sure what to call them really, because I'm not really well versed in, well, I'm not really well versed in what these things are called. So I do the best I can with it, but you're just going to have to bear with me on this one. No, I don't know what they're called, but they look pretty cool. Now that we've got a little bit of paint scraped out there, we can cover that back up with a little bit of this. Whew. Very good, very good, very good. This might be a little bit lighter than what I'm going for, but there. What we can always do is blend it out a little bit so it's barely noticeable afterward. Barely, he says. Yeah, I know. Sometimes you take liberties with your paintings like that. But a lot of times when you add little highlights like this, it can make things look a lot more interesting. Like, okay, over here we want to add a little bit of something here too. There. Okay, that's actually really good. That's really nice. Perfect, perfect. Now, there. Now what we can do is, well, we're going to clean off this knife. I really want to make a better habit of cleaning off the knife, and I want to make a better habit of not getting paint on my fingers. I don't know, I really don't know anybody who can keep their hands clean, but if you can keep your hands clean while painting, you deserve an award of some kind, because it is phenomenally difficult. I can barely keep my feet clean, let alone my hands. Okay, let's get out the small brush. Okay, that brush is dry. If you ever want to make sure whether your brush is dry or not, wipe it on your hand. It might have the residue of some odorless paint thinner on there. If it does, give it a good wipe on your towels, and then you can get to work. Yeah, just like that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Oh man. What do you think we should do here? Yeah. Yep, that's right. If you ever accidentally make a little streak in your painting, you can actually kind of just blend it in, and it just looks like it's part of everything as it should be. Here we go. That's looking pretty nice. So, obviously we want to rinse that off. We got to clean off our brushes. I know it's so tedious. It's so tedious, but it's one of those things that there's no getting around it. You have to do it. So give your brushes that dip, Neil Rose Turpentine. Give it a good bang. If you have two, rinse that one off too. Don't forget it. Don't leave it hanging. Okay. If you want, you can bang them both. There you go. And give it a good beat. Sometimes there's more odorless turpentine in your brush, and other times, and then you want to give it a good dry, because you do not want your painting to get a lot of turpentine on it, or else the paint will bleed. And that, my friends, you do not want that. You do not want that at all. What I'd like to do is to insert one more railing. That's right, I want to insert one more railing. And to do that, we will need the assistance of our large painting knife. And I believe if we just add some blue, we might need a little bit more blue once we finally add the highlight, but if we just add some blue here, and a couple of posts every so often, be sure that you get rid of all the blue that you can, and let's decide where we want this to be. Say right about here. Okay, and the next post can go right next to it. Okay, and then we'll say right about there is where I want that last post to be. Okay. Yeah. The next post can go, well, there's not going to be another post on this side, but the rail can go over that way. And then let's go ahead and wipe this off. Okay. Go ahead. Put it in that dark. Yeah. I want to say that for all you folks that are painting with me, or if you're just watching and enjoying yourself, I hope that you're having a nice time, that you're having a very relaxing time, and that you're experiencing the wonder of an impressionist style painting. And I really want to show you that impressionist painting is so much easier than you think it would be. Impressionist painting is possibly the easiest way to paint you could possibly really do a painting, if I'm being completely honest. Okay, I want to, there we go. Matter of fact, we could probably go around this way. There. Sometimes you gotta scratch things out like that. Ooh, I bet that felt really tingly, didn't it? Listening to that. A little scratch in the canvas. Yeah. Better get ready because we're gonna do that again. And let's see. Take that same color. Boy, I hope I don't have to mix more of this. I think that we're just about done here. Okay. There. All right. Let's add that highlight. We need to get a little bit more blue, I think. Well, let's wipe off the... Let's go to the... I know. Wiping off so much paint. But it's just one of those things that we have to do. Now let's see, where is a tube? Boy. Oh, it's right in front of me. Usually I have my colors laid out right in front of me, but sometimes they get mixed all around, and the knives and the brushes are on top of them and stuff. Okay, I think that's pretty good. We don't need that much blue right now, so what I have here will do just fine. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of, well, let's just go over here. There we are. Ooh, that is vibrant, isn't it? Yeah, it sure is. That might be too vibrant. That blue doesn't know what's good for it. Okay. Yeah. Well, with that, we can really highlight these things. Okay. Let's go ahead over here and... Now, since this is in the foreground, I think it'd be a good idea to make the posts a little bit more of a vibrant blue than the ones in the background. It's just a little idea I had about pushing some things forward and pushing some things back. It's a good way to do things, I think. You know, make things a little bit more vibrant in the foreground than in the background. I'm sure other people have their way of doing it, but I like this way. It feels like a, I don't know, it feels like a personal trademark of mine. And maybe that's not a positive thing to some people, but it's not something I really think about that much. You just gotta do what makes you happy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. If you're not happy while you're painting, then, to be honest, it's the point of even painting if you're not happy. Ooh. Let's just turn the knife upside down here. Ooh, look at that. That worked really well. Now we can go over here. There it is. There. Now we gotta get in these nooks and crannies here. Oh, those nooks and crannies. They can be such a challenge. There. Whew. There's one railing done. How do you like that? Okay, now we need to do the one going this way. And then any final touches, and we should be done with this painting. Feeling pretty good about this, guys. Okay, let's scratch out the second place, which is going to be right about there. I want the railing to go right about up to here. Oh, I know. Listen to that. Yeah. Just what you wanted was to scratch out a whole bunch of what you just did. Well, that's too bad, because it's happening, my friend. Okay, let's go make a mark right here. So we're going to go right about... There it is. Okay. Now we're going to go all the way down here. A little bit of foreshortening for you. Okay. And then right here. Well, let's clean some of that off because we're scraping up a lot of paint. Whew. Okay. And right there's the last one. Boy, oh boy. Last things we might do after this, I don't know. We might, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm going to go in. Ooh. See how easy that is after we scratch it out? It really can't emphasize how important drawing is when you're doing these things. Even when you think you're not drawing really comes in handy. Because drawing is pretty much the building block for all art. I don't know if you knew that. Look at that. Okay. There it is. Okay. Now, let's highlight that. Now, if you really want to get tricky with the foreshortening, you can make sure that the railing gets a lot bigger as it comes toward you, and you can also make sure that it looks a little bit more like a cylinder. But we don't have a lot of time here. I just want to show you how to do this. We really gotta move on. Okay, let's just get a little bit over there. Great. Okay, now comes the final touches where we just sort of decide, how crazy do we want to get with stuff. Like, maybe we want to add a little bit of a shadow here and there, and I don't know, do that. We mix up just a little bit of what we had. We don't need to get too crazy with it. Like say I've got that right there. Maybe I want to add a little bit of, maybe I want to add a little bit of red to that. Maybe I want to add a little bit of blue too. There. Okay, so we'll go ahead with that color that we made. See what it looks like up against there. And if we like it, we can go ahead and, well, run with it. Seeing as it doesn't look awful. And then we can do the same thing over here. Okay. And maybe, I don't know, just some shadows under here. And you could probably add one over here too. What the heck? Say that we add, I don't know, some right there. Maybe some right there. Wherever you want to add it, really. And then there's one little detail over here that I think that I should add. Now why don't we take a little bit of that bluish color that we made for the windows. Why don't we put it over here? Yeah. Maybe that's a little bit too dark. We can add a little bit of violet to that. Create something a little grayer. Put that in instead. And maybe that looks a little better. See? Let me see if I can get so the light hits it just right. Yeah. There we go. That's looking pretty neat. Okay, one last time. Let's be sure to wipe off the knife. Whew. Look how much paint we have on our palette today. Boy, with just those three colors, look at all we did. So much work. My goodness. Well, my friend, I think this concludes another episode of ASMR Painting. I really hope you enjoyed this one. And next time I'll be back with something new, something different, something I think you'll find very relaxing, very enjoyable, and very fun. Until next time, with love from me to you, I'll see you soon. Goodbye.